Welcome to the Orange Hammer Podcast. My name is Corbett Storick. I've been a licensed general contractor for 8+ years, specializing in new construction, renovation, furniture building. I'm the son of an architect and an interior designer, and I've been surrounded in this industry since birth, watching all aspects from concept, design, build, punch list, and of course, all the problems that come up in between. In my time in Durham, North Carolina, I've noticed a significant gap in knowledge between homeowners who need work and the people who do the work. On this podcast, I hope to break down the process of homeownership from the perspective of both the homeowner and the contractor in an effort to help raise the knowledge of homeowners about their homes and the construction/renovation process. I hope you enjoy. If you're enjoying the Orange Hammer Podcast, or if you have a topic that you want covered, or have recently done a project, please contact the Orange Hammer Podcast. The Orange Hammer Podcast is on Instagram and Facebook. Please like and subscribe, share on whatever platform you're enjoying your podcast on. Also, check out our YouTube channel, The Orange Hammer. The Orange Hammer Podcast is proud to be brought to you by CRS Contracting LLC for all your construction and handyman needs, new buildings to renovations, furniture building, EV charger install, or even a TV mounted. You can call me, Corbett Storick. It'd be my pleasure to help you. You can find me on Instagram at CRS Contracting. WSDG, the Walter Storick Design Group, specialists in architectural and acoustical consulting. Check out WSDG.com. And Taylor Bragg, for all your artistic needs in all mediums. You can find her on Instagram at brag_about_art. That's brag, BRGG, with 2 G's. She's the fantastic artist behind the Orange Hammer logo, and she did my fantastic table painting of my podcasting table. Here we are, everybody. Welcome to the Orange Hammer Podcast. Today we have Frank McBride in the studio, the newly coined hot seat. I think I'm going to steal that name from you. Thank you. Frank, how you doing this morning?
Fantastic. And you?
I am doing great. I want to thank you so much for coming. I want to just dive right into what you do for a living, because even though it is not directly related to homeownership and construction, we very quickly found a way that we could relate it, but at the same time, it's unique. And I want to just kind of throw it back over to you to kind of describe what you do.
Okay. Well, first, I want to thank you for this opportunity to be on with you today. And what I've created is a product I call the Travel Rewards Optimizer. And overall, the purpose is to turn a clients' routine credit card spending into the travel of their dreams. There are a vast array of loyalty programs in travel, airline programs, hotel programs, all kinds of offers from credit card companies. But there are hundreds of them. They're confusing. And my job is to find out what a client is interested in travel-wise, where they would like to go, what they like to do, how they like to travel, how they spend their money, and then turn that into a plan they can follow so that they can make the most efficient use of just routine, everyday credit card spending. And again, turn that into to free travel.
Right. So you're not so much... not to say that you're not interested is the incorrect terminology, but for all intents and purposes, you're not so much interested in what they're spending money on, more so just that when they spend their money, they're rather using the correct credit card in the correct program to make sure that they're optimizing basically like points.
Exactly. Okay. And in fact, in collecting information from potential clients, I don't even ask for sensitive financial information. I'm interested in some things like how much they might spend per month on groceries or restaurant spending or gas, but I'm not interested in their net worth, their annual income, even their total amount of spending per year. That's really none of my business. But with the types of information I do collect, I'm able to kind of help them focus their spending and their credit card usage accordingly so that they can get the most bang for the buck as far
Right,
as
right.
free
Because this
travel.
is stuff that they're going to buy no matter what.
Exactly.
You're just saying, you're just coming in and being like, look, buy the groceries, buy the gas. I don't actually care. But if you use this card instead of the one you've been using, in a year you could be flying business class instead of coach, like because of all these rewards, or have a much cheaper hotel or a free hotel, or I'm just like making something up as an example.
That's the idea. Clients have different interests. Some are interested in luxury travel. Some are just interested in budget travel, but more of it. And
right.
So it's about almost always about saving money, but also possibly elevating the travel experience.
Okay. So out of those two, being the luxury travel elevated or helping somebody travel more on a budget, is one more interesting to you, or is it the same level of work/interest where you're just helping a client optimize?
I just enjoy the process of helping them optimize. Every plan I create is unique. They're all custom, specific to the needs and goals of the client. And so every client who comes along is really just a puzzle for me to solve. So that's really I guess the exciting part for me is they want either to kind of upgrade the way they travel, or they want to lower the cost of their travel, and I find an efficient, optimized way for them to do it. So again, it's about solving the puzzle.
Right.
That everybody presents me a unique situation.
Interesting. So how do you get into this kind of work? Because it's definitely not something that you're the first person I've met who does this.
Yes, and I don't know that anyone else does. Perhaps I'm the only person who does. I've been looking far and wide to see if anyone else does something like this. I have yet to find them. But how I got into it, this goes back a bit, but I'll be as brief as I can about the first 35 years or so. Took my first big international trip after my freshman year in college. It was about an 8-week trip to Europe, and that just kind of blew my mind about what was out there and how great travel was. And I just thought, I like this. I want to do more of it. So I traveled a lot as a young person, especially Europe and Asia. Then got married, had kids. That kind of dampens the opportunities for travel a bit. But my wife and I became empty nesters about 8 years ago. And so the travel got ratcheted up. And I'd always had credit cards that gave me points or miles, but never really thought too much about them. And I just learned, pretty quickly that travel's expensive, but there were ways to make it significantly less expensive with just careful use of these various loyalty programs and credit card rewards. And then a few years ago, right before COVID, my wife and I planned a trip with another couple, and they said, "Okay, we've got to get to England, and we've got to fly over there." And I said, "Look into this. These credit cards, do this, do that, and it'll save you a lot of money." And they became converts and thought, "Yes, this is great." So they were very happy with the advice I gave them, and I thought it would be neat to just be able to share it with people generally, because there's a lot of opportunity in it to help people travel more and travel more comfortably. And I thought it would be just a fun exercise that I would enjoy doing, but I think bring a tremendous benefit to people.
Career-wise, what were you doing before you got into this?
I'm really still doing it. I'm kind of easing into the travel rewards optimizer, but marketing research.
Oh, okay. Well, there's a lot of crossover in those worlds.
To some extent,
Yeah.
in some ways. I've always been someone who's enjoyed numbers, statistics, math, and this is just another application for something that I kind of like to do naturally.
Mm. So how do you figure out how to charge somebody for this service?
It's a flat fee, because the sort of work that I do is very similar. It's about gathering information about again, their travel goals, how they spend their money. It's important where they live. Of course, you and I are near Raleigh-Durham International Airport, which is not quite as international as, say, JFK or Washington Dulles Airport. So that affects what I can do for people, the recommendations I would make. But I take in all that information, and that's pretty much the same for any client. And then I have to think about a best solution and then present it to them in a easy to use format. The idea is I try to reduce all the complexity of what's out there, all the various programs, all the various offers that credit card issuers are making. And I take all that complexity and simplify it for them. And so that's the product, and it's all pretty much a flat fee.
And do you work with people from anywhere in the world?
No, unfortunately, it has to be limited to the United States. So United States citizens or residents who would have a Social Security number. The banking laws are very different in the United States, such that American credit card issuers can offer pretty generous travel rewards programs that are not offered in other countries.
Okay.
And the flip side of that, though, is, a caveat is, I think interest rates on credit card spending tend to be higher in the United States. And so this program that I've created is for people who are able to pay their bills in full pretty much every month, not people who carry balances. Because truthfully, the interest rates charged by credit card companies can quickly negate any travel benefits. So that's an important consideration. And I would recommend, whether someone was interested in travel rewards or not, to try to avoid carrying balances, if at all possible.
I mean, I think that's sage advice just across the board.
Exactly.
Yeah. I mean,
if
you have the ability.
Yes,
obviously.
if you can. You do not want to be financing your groceries and your movie tickets in Starbucks at 21% interest.
No. I mean, ideally, you don't want to be financing those things at all. You just want to be able to afford those types of things. But I'm definitely not somebody who's going to start giving financial advice. I'm not qualified.
and nor am I.
Yeah. So the kind of interesting tie-in that we, at least, I think we were kind of joking back and forth via email, but then, not so jokingly, here we are now, is you can buy a tremendous amount, if not most, of the things for home renovations on a credit card.
Yes.
And those are, depending on the project, could be massive chunks of purchases that, then lead to massive points for travel.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So that would, there's an easy kind of way to do that. The old school way is, just kind of like writing checks as draws to a contractor, but you get no points that way.
No.
And then I, as the contractor, am paying stuff on my credit card and I'm getting the points, but it's just as easy for the homeowner to buy the stuff at Lowe's or, purchase materials rather with a credit card. And that could lead to a tremendous amount of points.
True. And I think an important thing to point out is if you are doing home renovation type projects, you're going to be spending a fair amount of money in a short period of time. And the way a lot of these travel rewards cards work, especially the really generous ones, is they give you large sign-up bonuses, that can easily be worth north of $1,000 on a card that you're paying an annual fee of $95 for. So it's pretty clear that you're getting the return. But what they want is for you to spend perhaps several $1,000s in a short period of time, maybe 3 months. So for someone who might not be using credit cards a lot, this is an opportunity to think, okay, I can make something out of this this project I'm doing, kind of as a bonus. Treat myself to some hotel rooms somewhere on a trip to another place, or maybe flights. And these sign-up bonuses can even get you something on the order of a round trip to Europe.
Really?
Sure.
Just from signing up for the initial credit card opening.
Right, because the bonuses can sometimes be 50, 60, 70,000 points, and that's enough to get you a round trip to Europe on some of the domestic carriers.
Is it usually just like $1 spent is 1 point? Is it like a 1-to-1 thing?
Uh,
I'm sure every card is different, but just
they,
for the sake of like generality,
they
because I don't know at all.
It's all over the map. A lot of them have are 1-for-1, but then a lot of them have bonus categories, and that's where my expertise comes in.
Okay, right.
There's some that give you bonuses on groceries and restaurant dining, some that give you bonuses on gas, some that give you bonuses on your cell phone bill. And
okay.
so the key is, that's why I'm asking questions about it when I'm first working with a client, what you spend in these different areas, because then I can shape their program toward what they're going to naturally do anyway.
Right. Like
again,
if somebody's traveling a tremendous amount for work, driving all over and
Yes.
buying a tremendous amount of gas, you're going to lean them more towards that higher gas percentage card, because
Exactly.
they're just going to literally make more points for doing the exact same life they've already been living.
Exactly.
Right.
It's all about just leveraging routine spending, because of course, one thing I would never want someone to do is spend with the idea of, well, I'm spending money to get points, but you don't want to get yourself in trouble. It's all about just doing what's routine.
Right. That would be a very, very dangerous game of just like, ooh, let's overspend so that we can get airline points. Like then all of a sudden you're really digging a financial hole for yourself.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. I never even really thought of that, but I guess people have tried to do stranger things, right?
Right. It's just so important to make it straightforward and simple. I don't want my clients to feel overwhelmed when they get my written plan in front of them. I want it to be very very clear and succinct, so that they know there are just a few things they need to do. And as far as if I'm recommending that over the course of a few months or a year they pick up 3 credit cards, how I have them keep track is actually fairly low tech. I say, put a piece of masking tape on the card and write what it's for. So you put a piece of masking tape on your card and say, this is groceries and restaurants, and this one is gas, and this one is any kind of travel.
It's just that simple.
Sure. And that way, when you walk around with maybe a few credit cards in your wallet, there are, I think various bloggers and sites where these gurus will talk about, these are the 25 credit cards I have in my wallet right now, but that's insane.
25. What kind of wallet?
Well, that's just it. Here's a bit of trivia that's kind of trivial, but there was an article in one of these major blogs at the end of last year, and it was entitled, "Here are the 30 credit cards in my wallet." 30 credit cards stacked up are an inch thick.
That's insane.
Yeah, I don't know why it's too much to manage. And also the fees, you're paying fees on most of them. There are cards that have no fees, but you're often paying fees ranging anywhere from $95 a year to several $100s a year. So, of course,
yeah, that like hit me that like stuck in the back of my head when you mentioned that, because all my cards don't have any fees.
Okay.
And I probably don't have, the optimal, fees, or the optimal, excuse me, I misspoke, the optimal card for points. I just have like the cards that were easy to get through Bank of America for my business, and same for my personal. And they were just like,
there's certainly lots of no fee cards, a lot of good ones, and some of them offer cash. I think cash back. Usually it's about 2%.
Yeah, I think I have that as well.
The cards that you use for travel, some of those fit into travel rewards schemes. But the ones that really accelerate things for you and give you the sign-up bonuses and allow you to think in terms of free trip to Europe, those are the ones that might cost you $95 a year. But if used carefully, judiciously, they're certainly going to pay for themselves.
Yeah, I mean, okay, for listeners not in the triangle, this might be like a little bit, useless information. But what's a ballpark RDU to Europe flight cost?
I think a round trip now to kind of the major European destinations, it'd be London, Paris, Rome, maybe Madrid, probably about $1,000. And I don't mean to be flippant, but I probably don't have a better handle on what it costs because I haven't been paying cash for flights that much.
I mean, if you're paying cash for flights, then that would be like a dentist with bad teeth. Like you shouldn't be. You should be only buying flights with points because you should
If
you should be the guru of points.
It's just yeah. I do try to practice what I preach and preach what I practice.
But I asked because $95 for it's a one time or a yearly fee.
It's an annual.
Okay.
Even though a lot of the issuers, they'll waive the first year fee, so you can earn the points, and you've gone to Europe and come home before you even have to pay them an annual fee.
Right. That's the point I was going to make. Like, even if you don't get the fee waived, paying $95 to turn free points into $1,000 ticket, that's a great deal.
Yes.
It's a tremendous savings.
Yes. And I think another important point is it's not necessarily a one-shot thing. It's sustainable. I've been doing this consistently for about 7 years now. And the key is you have to play fair with the banks. You can't get a card, get the points, use them, and then say, see you later after a year, or I'm going to pay the annual fee once and then
cancel the card.
If you do a lot of that, they will stop issuing you credit cards because, of course, any time you apply for a credit card and you get one, it becomes part of the record. And so if they see someone who has a bunch of cards that they've held for a year over and over again, they're going to say, that's business we don't want. They have to feel like they're making money off of you. And the way from my perspective, if they get swipe fees, they get a cut of everything you buy, a couple percent or whatever it is, that's fine. What I don't want to pay them is late fees and interest.
Right. That's where they really get you. Those are big.
Sure. So yeah. I don't do that. But one analogy I like to use is sometimes you have gym memberships and you have people who they sign up. Yeah, I should go to the gym. I need to take better care of myself. And they go 3 times a year. They go a couple times around New Year's, and then you don't see them after 1st of February.
Yeah, gyms love those people.
Of course they do. And then there are people who are the gym I go to, they're people, it seems like I see them whenever I go, any day of the week, any time of day. They're in there, I'm sure, 5-6 days a week. And they are being subsidized by the 3 times a year people.
Yeah.
And the thing is, it's the same gym. They're all paying the same thing, but some people decide to utilize it fully and get their money's worth and probably more. And then you have people who just aren't taking advantage of what's there for them.
Right. I'm one of those people. I didn't really have the knowledge, and I never really thought about it until I met you. And I was like, wow, I guess why haven't I been I've just been turning it all into that cash back, but cash back to then buy flights. Might as well turn it into point, it's like.
Yeah, and cash back, there's some good cards out there. And again, some of them are at no cost. They have no annual fee. And they generate about 2%. I think if used carefully, if you want travel, if you want to turn your rebate, as it were, into travel, you can think more in terms of 6 to 8%.
Okay.
Or possibly more. So
that's an easy way to think about it.
Yeah. So this is for people who want to travel. There's no point loading yourself up with frequent flyer miles and things if you don't want to do that. By all means, there are other programs that in effect are rebates.
Right.
And sometimes people need or want pure cash.
Yeah.
But for people who are ready to travel and have dreams of exciting destinations or even just visiting family members in the United States, it's all good for that too. You don't have to go on the vacation of your dreams.
Yeah, it's not exclusively to Europe. You could just fly to Arizona to visit your grandma or whatever.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And the thing is,
and get a rental car and a better hotel room, all with these points. Like that's
They don't really apply to rental cars.
They don't.
Interestingly,
okay.
There's not a lot of that, which surprises me. I would think that Hertz and Avis and the big companies.
I was literally about to say, how is Hertz not talking with American Express or something?
I don't.
Huh.
Yeah, there are things where you get certain cards and you might get elevated status with these rental car companies, but that's really not as much a thing. If it becomes a thing, I'd certainly like to look into it because there's certainly times where I want cars.
Yeah.
But mainly, I'm able to get people into good plans that help them with hotels and flight.
Well, that's big 2 out of 3 for a vacation. So, I mean, and depending on the vacation, a lot of people don't even need a car. Like the last one I can think of, I went to New Orleans and we didn't rent a car. We just Ubered from the airport to our Airbnb. And then, New Orleans is so small and their tram system is so good that we walked, we trammed, and, the occasional Uber, and we were fine. So there you go.
But and I do think that in general, the big hits people take are the flight and the hotels.
Oh yeah, I mean the biggest cost is usually on a vacation is usually getting somewhere, especially if you're going from here to Europe. I mean that's a huge literal distance, and that just the further the more expensive. Like I have a friend who they backpacked with their I think fiance at the time, whatever. As a couple, they went backpacking in Thailand, and they were like, "Yeah, it cost $1,800 to get there." But when we were there, we were eating pad thai for $1.25. It was like more pad thai than we knew what to do with, and like our hotel was like this much Thai money, which translated to like $11 a night, or just, it was all astronomically very inexpensive. But compared to the flight, that as you said, that's usually the biggest hit.
Yeah, jet fuel is expensive.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. So, okay, give me at least one or maybe two of your best destinations that you've done as a traveler. What do you got for me?
Okay. I'm not doing it so much now, but I really got excited about Paris.
Okay.
And there was a period where my wife and I, and sometimes the children went, we'd get over there about every 18 or 24 months. And I just liked it because it's small, it's compact, it's walkable, and they have good, excellent public transit. And there is just so much to see. It's kind of like this buffet table that's 100 feet long, and you start on it, and there's all this great stuff on the buffet table, and then you realize, wow, I've only moved 3 feet along this 100-foot buffet table, and there's another 97 feet of great stuff. And so I actually got so into it that I wrote a guidebook called the Paris Optimizer, because I've always been interested in logistics and optimizing and saving money, and it was about how to do that if you go to Paris. And did those for a few years. I think I put them out between 2015 and 2020. And of course, I put out a 2020 Paris Optimizer in September of 2019. And, sales were starting to pick up a bit, and then COVID hit. So
Yes.
that sort of kind of had an impact on my enthusiasm for guidebooks, because I put a lot of work into it. And then of course, COVID killed it. But that's a fantastic destination.
I went as a kid. I was lucky enough. They took me. They had business in France, and
Okay.
I do remember going to a museum that had pipes on the outside of the building.
That's the Pompidou Center,
There you go.
which is modern art.
It was very cool. The building is kind of its own art piece.
It is. It's I guess they call it the Inside Out building, because
Yeah.
ducts and pipe work are on the outside. There's
Yeah.
6 levels of escalator that are also on the outside.
Yeah, it was
So-
very, very cool.
So you get a view. Yeah, that's something a kid would really be into.
I was definitely into that. And then my brother and I were, I remember like we got kind of like my parents had like a friend whose kid was there in college. So he kind of like babysat us one afternoon, and he was like some college art student.
Oh, cool.
So he took my older brother, who's 4 years older than me. So I'm going to screw up the ages, but I think he was maybe 13, which, makes me 9. So we're pretty young. So we tour the catacombs, which is, of course, like, millions of skulls and bones and very like dark and creepy. And then really the only other memory I have is like just eating chocolate crepes on the street, right from like a just like a vendor cart
Yeah,
who just
yeah,
like
the
made it
vendors.
right there in front of me, and it was the best crepe I've ever had in my entire life, and I should go back as an adult.
Oh yeah, yeah. I mean, there's something for anybody and at any age.
Do you speak French?
Un petit peu,
Okay.
but not very well.
I'm gonna assume that was a little. You said a little bit because
Yes.
I speak Spanish and it sounded kind of close.
But I can get by. I can read and write it
Wow.
fairly well.
Did you take it in school?
Yes, a long
Okay.
time ago, and then I boned up with Duolingo, and I try to. There are a few languages where if I go to the country, I try to bone up with Duolingo a little bit. Am I going to have deep philosophical conversations about Sartre?
No.
No, not at all.
But if you can ask for a beer and where the restroom is,
that's about 9/10 of it.
that's a lot of stuff, though. That's
Oh,
a lot
yeah.
of stuff right there. I'm just saying, if you're traveling, because
Sure.
you can point on most menus, and if you just smile and make sure you're polite and are a good tipper, you at least won't get like spit in the face. And then you need to know where the restroom is.
Yeah, I typically just have overwhelmingly had positive experiences. I think there's some people who are afraid of travel. They think that people from this country are rude or not.
A
nice
lot
to
of people
Americans.
are afraid of travel, and I
And-
think it has nothing to do with travel. I think they're just afraid of what they don't know.
That could be it. I just I don't know. I'm always excited about travel, enthused about it, interested in learning things. I think if they see you coming in from that with that attitude, and if you're reasonable, you'll be treated accordingly. Just as that's the case traveling within the United States.
Absolutely. And I think one thing that I'm sure you'll agree with, but you just didn't mention, is one of the best parts for me about traveling is the food.
Oh,
Just
wow,
trying
yeah.
tremendous cuisines and seeing the culture, both, I mean, the visuals, the obvious taste, the obvious nourishment, but then also visualizing the culture around food. Like when you see how the markets are set up in different places, how like the little street fairs, what we would call the farmer's market, how they might be set up. Like when you go to Italy, that's just a whole vibe. Like that's an entire, just being in there and witnessing it and seeing the quality of things. And then going to a restaurant that's like the size of this room, but yet somehow 60 people are crammed in there for the best tomato sauce on the planet. It's hard to put into words. It's very, very amazing and needs to be experienced.
I do think they have a different attitude toward food. I think to some extent for Americans, food can be about fueling up. It's almost like a commodity, and it's something you got to do. Like you have to put gas in your car, and that's a shame because there's a lot of care and skill and love that goes into food in places that you travel, and it's I've just had some sublime experiences, both just with having great food, but just also the interaction with the people who are creating it and serving it.
Yeah,
and so
I agree.
That's I think a major part of the educational value of travel.
I couldn't agree more. When I was too young to appreciate it, my parents were still making me travel with them. And I have to thank them for that over and over and over again, because, they would pull me out of school at a young enough age where it didn't matter. What I was learning at that age in school for that week was not important, but being with them and seeing Switzerland or France or Germany or South America was way more important. That culture, that food, the architecture. My dad's an architect, so obviously that's something where we're looking at everything through that lens. And as a kid, it was definitely a borderline, because a lot of times I'd be very upset about missing something I look back on that'd be very trivial, like, oh no, I don't want to miss this. I have art class that day. That's like my favorite thing. Or, it's someone's birthday and I'm going to miss like the party or whatever. But the reality of being 32 now and looking back at it, like, thank heavens that they popped me out of school for all those trips. I wouldn't trade them for anything. They were all so important, and it's instilled that love of learning about new cultures like you were mentioning, and the love of travel that's still like with me today. So it's like it's definitely something that is important and should be stressed. Travel's amazing. It's fun. It's an incredible way to learn about a culture. Just go get immersed in it.
And I think I was fortunate in that my parents also believed, there's educational value to travel, and things at school you'll catch up when you get back. A week's not going to alter the course of your life. And we raised our own children with that idea. Once they get into middle school, definitely high school, their activities take over. There's a lot of academic pressure. They've got to think about doing well in high school to get into the college they want to get into, and so the idea of pulling them out for a week becomes more problematic. At least that's the way it was in.
You are spot on. For the record, the pullouts, they got less and less as I got older. Yeah. When I was in second grade, it was nothing for them to pop me out for a week. In 11th grade, I don't think it ever happened. I think it was like, okay, when's your Christmas vacation? That's when you can, we'll plan a trip around the school break. But yeah, so it was a very similar situation because college prep is stressful. So.
Indeed.
So before we change gears, what's the easiest way for listeners to contact you if they want to hire you to optimize their travel?
Okay. Started up a website. It's travelrewardsoptimizer.com. And to be clear, the reward part is plural. It's travelrewardsoptimizer.com. And so they can certainly contact me there and sign up for a plan. But also I just put content on there from time to time. I try to post a couple times a week, and just information that's of use to anybody who's interested in travel and rewards travel, whether they want to use my service or not. And I'm starting to use Instagram, Facebook more, and Twitter, which I guess is now X.
Right. Elon changed it.
Right. So I am trying to put content up there also. But of course, the website is a good place to look. If I'm liked on Facebook or followed on the Twitter or the Instagram, then at least people can be notified when there's content that might be of interest. But I would invite people to come take a look. I'm trying to offer information that's practical. I don't like to write articles about nasty things I found in the seat back pocket, or people behaving badly on airlines, trying to join the Mile High Club or things like that. I try to deliver content that's very bottom line and practical, and would help people make better use of their travel dollars, or at least travel more comfortably. But I would like people to to drop in, check it out, and send me your questions or concerns or hopes or dreams. I like dialogue, and it's as you can see, I could talk about travel all day. So always want to hear from people, and I just hope that I can provide content and information, and for the people who want them, the plans that will again turn routine spending they were going to do anyway, into great travel.
I think it's something that is unique. I think it's fun, and at least from the way that you've described it, it really seems like you're going to spend this money anyway.
Yes.
Like if you really, really want to do a lot of traveling, or already do, and you're just saving to then buy tickets because you didn't know that this was a thing, then it really can change the game, because you could still save that money and then be buying something not necessarily more important, but possibly more vital, or using it in conjuncture with the rewards that you made by buying the same stuff you were already going to buy, and just either get, as you said earlier, either more budget travel or elevated travel wherever you're already going with a more luxury experience. And I think not enough people know about it, and I think it's great that you're doing something like this. So definitely check out this website. Give Frank I don't know, a call is probably the wrong word on the website, but
Yeah, drop me a line.
Drop you a line of some kind. Yeah. So yeah, okay. So I'd love to switch gears now a little bit. Tie it back in just a hair with some construction and home ownership. You mentioned your own home.
Yes.
Which, if memory serves, is a 40 or 30-year-old? 30-year-old home. Okay. So tell me a little bit about your home.
Okay. My wife and I moved to the area about 30 years ago. We spent a year kind of figuring out where we wanted to be. We ended up in the southern part of Orange County, a little bit south of Chapel Hill, just outside of the city limits. So we're in the school zone, but not the city limit, which is an interesting wrinkle. But found
is that helpful though? Could better school zone for your kids?
Yeah, we like the schools, and we don't pay Chapel Hill taxes, but you pay a surcharge for the school district. But our taxes are less than they would be for a comparably priced home across the border.
And how close are you to the border? The imaginary county border, that is.
About 100 feet.
Okay. So your taxes would be doubled if your house was 101 feet to the right.
Not doubled, but about 50% more.
About 50. Okay, well, that's a lot.
Oh, yes, it is. So when people are grilling burgers on the Chapel Hill side, I can smell what they're having for dinner. If they have an argument with their spouse, I might hear it. No, so that we found nice wooded neighborhood. Found a lot, so we were able to build the house ourselves. And it's kind of 2-story, wood siding, 4 bedrooms, 2.5 baths.
So a couple of questions: is it on a well?
No.
Okay, so it's on. Even though you're you're just over that border, you're still within city sewer and water.
We have access to OWASA, Orange Water and Sewer.
Okay, so water, sewer, powers Duke or Piedmont?
Duke.
Okay.
And as far as the sewer goes, we actually have people who are only a few houses away that are on septic, and they're not hooked up. So there's kind of a mishmash of things going on.
It's interesting, the hodgepodge sometimes, because I have some rental properties as listeners have heard me say, and I have 2 of them that have septic in the backyard, but are getting city water. And it's very strange, just based on like the time that they were built and the location. I was like, okay, I'd never seen that personally, but I had to, put a new cap on the tank on one of them and put a whole new tank and system on another one of them, because it was like much older and more abandoned. But it was quite an interesting situation, because normally when you're getting water, they're taking sewage as well,
right.
Normally, but there's a first for everything.
There are a lot of wrinkles in this area. I think things in the Chapel Hill, Orange County area, there are things that fell under the jurisdiction of the university, and it's hard to keep it straight. I'm glad that guys like you can figure these things out, because it makes my head spin.
I mean, that's why guys like me exist. But also, it's completely, rules change constantly.
Yes.
And when things were built is a huge question. The 2 houses that I just mentioned, one was, built in the 80s. It wasn't that old. But the one next to it was 100 years older, but yet still done the same way. So just the rules had not changed, despite building tactics obviously changing. But when we gutted them both, the first one had modern 2x4s that are only 3.5 by 1.5. But then the next door house, when we gutted it, it was like real 2x4s with the saw marks on the side. Like they probably milled the tree that was in the way of the house on site and used it. Like that's how old it was. And but that I could go on and on just like you could about travel, about how cool that is. Because for me, it's, I can literally, at least in my mind, I can imagine like, oh, wow, there's, hundreds of pieces of wood here that were probably, first growth trees
Mm-hmm.
in the way of this house. They could have been the size of a car away all the way around and took, hundreds of hours to drop correctly and mill and debark and create an entire house's worth of framing structure. And to me, that just like, makes me a little warm and fuzzy inside because I like thinking about it.
I'm sure it's great wood, which is why you can still make use of it.
Oh, it's so good. Yeah, as far as wood quality, to break that down in the shortest way, because again, I don't want to like just talk about that for hours. The rings in the tree, like you supposedly you count them, and that's how many years old the tree is.
Right.
The distance between those rings, the more distance, the softer the wood.
Right.
The tighter the distance, the harder the wood. And harder and softer in this case refers to strength, harder
Yes.
being stronger. So when you look at the wood that we demo out of that house that's 100 plus years old, those rings are very tight together, stacked, really, 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 really tight. And that wood is so hard. It's really hard to cut through. It's heavier in the dumpster. It's heavier on your back when you're walking it to the dumpster. It's harder to nail new stuff into it because the nail gun will throw a nail through the new 2x4 with ease, but then when it hits the old one, it might not drive as far as it would if it was just two modern 2x4s together. And then when you look at when you look at a new modern 2x4, the rings are very spaced because at this point, unfortunately, just because of the way that the world has worked for long before, since even you or I have been born, the hard growth, original growth trees, they're gone. They have been harvested. And the wood that you're buying at like Lowe's or anywhere for that matter, for the most part, is a tree that a lumber company has planted in our lifetime and harvested, and it was planted and harvested for the sole purpose of getting straight shitty lumber, for lack of a better term.
Yeah.
Fast growing, not that strong.
Yep.
And it has, the building practices have also morphed. Now it's almost unheard of to construct a property, a house, a residential at least, without sheet goods. And by sheet goods, I mean plywood.
Yeah.
Flooring, siding, sheathing, the roof deck. It's, all those very crappy new growth members can remain not as strong because of the tying together of the sheet goods. That 8-foot piece, it hits, 9 of those pieces and stagger the seams, glue, nails, etc. But when you rip apart that 100-year-old home, there was no plywood, didn't exist.
Mm-hmm.
Got invented sometime in the 50s. So a 100-year-old home, it's got the same, framing members in the floor, but instead of a sheet of plywood, it's real 2x8 boards.
Wow. Yeah.
On a diagonal herringbone, tongue and groove, hand nailed with square head nails.
That is a very different floor.
It's a very different floor, and honestly, it's stronger than the new floor we built.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. And
Absolutely.
in that particular case that I've been referencing, we kept all of it. We replaced the 2 rotten boards. The third one was cracked. We went under, we did some supporting, and then we just went over top of it with plywood so that we had a nice smooth surface to glue a new floor down. But we were like, we don't need to lift this up. It's so strong already. Add some plywood and glue just to help level it out a little bit. Call it a day.
Yeah.
So, but they don't do that anymore. It's
What's interesting is, our house is 30 years old, and I think it's a well-constructed house. We put good components in it. But even when it was built, there was guess, kind of an appraisal of the plan because we built it ourselves. And it said the expected lifespan of the house was 60 years. And I kind of thought, why does it have to be that way? I mean, do we, can it last longer? Because we have things in this country, extant, homes and buildings that are far older. And we've been talking about travel in Europe. You go over there and you see things that are 1,000 years old.
Yeah.
I mean, the Gothic period started about 850 years ago, and you can go over there and walk to the top of the church steeples or towers, and you're trusting the work that somebody did before the time of Columbus.
So I'm curious, who the 60 years, that's done by the bank appraiser?
I guess they appraised the plans.
Okay.
Because we had to take out a construction loan, and they wanted to make sure that the final product would be, would justify the loan. And so, it was an assumption just kind of written into this appraisal that the house would last 60 years.
And was out of curiosity, and maybe you don't remember, it's 30 years ago. Is there fine print on that? Like, it will last 60 years if nothing's done. It will last 80 years if you replace the siding. Like, is there
just expected lifespan?
Okay.
Just based on, I guess.
Clearly, there's a formula somewhere.
Their estimates, I guess, based on the construction techniques and the materials available at the time.
Interesting.
That the house was going to be a 60-year house.
That's very interesting.
And I just, from the standpoint of wanting to think about the environment and stuff, it's like, wow, you've got all these materials going into a house that's a little over 3,000 square feet. And I'm just thinking, are we just going to throw it into a landfill someday?
Yeah.
And I think nothing's going to last forever, I don't think, but you want that day to be farther out than sooner.
I mean, I want the day to be farther out than I'm going to live.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm designing a house for myself right now, and I'm trying to design a house that will outlive me because I don't want to do it again. So, 32 plus 60, 92. Okay, I guess I'm okay with that. But still, it seems short.
But then something that you put yourself into, and you'd like to think that it would live on.
I mean, yes, obviously.
Possibly.
You have kids you want to leave it to. So,
it's your legacy. It's like your craftsmanship, your skill, and your thought got put into it.
You mentioned the construction loan.
Yes.
Was that difficult to attain?
At the time, I think I was a little bit annoyed with some of the process, but I would say no.
Okay. And so how did you go about acquiring your builder?
We got recommendations from the realtor who sold us the lot.
Okay, so you went and bought land raw without.
Yes.
Okay. How much approximately? How much land? Like how many acres?
I think it's about 0.8.
Oh, okay, it's a small. Okay, gotcha.
Yeah,
was it like next to houses that were already being developed? Is it like a cul-de-sac kind of community situation?
Really. It was a fairly mature neighborhood with the oldest house was probably built in the 60s, maybe 1970.
Okay.
So at the time we were looking at it, it already had about some houses as much as 25 years old, and there was a home completed, I think, as recently as about 4 or 5 years ago.
Okay.
So it was just kind of a nice bucolic setting, very woodsy, and it just took a good 50 years to fill it up. But it's done now.
It's out of space.
Out of space.
Gotcha.
Unless they decide, that's a 60-year house and we're going to tear it down because it's 60 and build a new one. But
you never know. I see it happening in Durham where I would not have thought to see it happen. You see a house that I would love to go renovate, and they'll just pop it down, and then they'll build 2 shockingly skinny homes on it with a shared driveway. And I looked at the lot, not like aggressively in detail, but I looked at the lot when I drive by it, and I'm like, how could they even have fit that? And then I see it built, and I'm like, well, clearly it passed code, or somebody paid somebody off.
But yeah, the realtor gave us I think hooked us up with about 6 people, and we had some plans that we'd created and ran it by them.
How'd you go about creating plans?
Had some rough ideas of what we wanted, and then went with a designer who's not technically an architect.
Okay.
Sorry.
No, don't be sorry.
I know you come from that heritage.
Oh, I totally do, but that's not. I'm more interested in the process because there's no wrong way to eat a Reese's. Like there's so many avenues where you can get from no house to house. So you went with a designer, and I mean they could still draw what you're envisioning.
Right.
Did you then have to talk to somebody who's more into like the framing and the codes? Like, did you have to get an engineer to do some structural stuff, or did you then need an architect at some point?
The designer certainly ran it by engineers to make sure that it was sound. But then we had plans, blueprints, and
so your designer had some sort of network where they weren't just like picking colors. This type of designer.
No.
Okay.
No. And then our realtor hooked us up with some various builders to interview, and they had different philosophies. I think what we were interested in was obviously people who are good listeners, people who we thought wanted to do quality work. And we ruled out one person pretty quickly because his attitude was, well, how long do you want to live here? And I said, well, what does that matter? And he said, well, if you want to live here for 5 years, we'll build it this way. And then, and then you'll be gone, and whatever issues arise won't be your problem. And,
Wrong guy.
And that it was, you're out.
Yeah. Have a good day.
But that just, again, I was just thinking about, this is a big thing, and there's a lot of materials. There's brick, and there's sheetrock and wood, and all these components. Everything is going into that house, and the idea that you could be so cavalier as to think, well, we're just going to build it to last a few years, and if it becomes crappy after that, it's the next owner's problem.
You would be very upset to hear how common that is, and they don't even care about the 5 years. They care about the 1 year.
Yeah, I just
care about the 1 year warranty.
And circling back to to travel a little bit, you're visiting and interacting with cultures that we're a 200 almost 250-year-old country. We're interacting with cultures and peoples who've been doing their thing for thousands of years, and I don't know. I guess I like a sense of permanence and heritage, and that's what excites me about travel. And then just in my everyday life, I want to think about home that way. And again, as a practical matter, I think if you're not being careful with the components you put in your home and the way you build, you're just going to pay down the road.
Oh, 100%. Yeah.
So as you could gather from my work with the travel stuff, I like to find ways to save money and make things efficient and kind of long-term work out financially to my advantage. And I think just your attitude toward how you maintain your home and how you even build it in the first place, it's all very important to that.
It's very well said. Yeah. And home ownership is a constant maintenance. And it's something that actually is part of the reason I started this podcast, because a lot of people don't know that. Even people who've owned homes for years, they don't know things like flushing out the water heater yearly. Mm-hmm. For number, thing, just one random example.
Well, I guess as a culture, we move around so much. I think a lot of people, if they're moving constantly, you don't get to really kind of sense that I'm here for the long haul. And I guess as a practical matter, why think that way if you're constantly being relocated?
Yeah.
But the house I grew up with, that my parents built about the time I was born, in the early 60s, is still there. My parents are gone, but my father's second wife still lives in that house. They did it right. It's definitely needs some cosmetic work, But as far as what it was as a house with its the copper pipes and the lumber that went into it and the brick and everything, it's very solid house.
Yeah, the house that I grew up in is still lived in by my parents, and it's very solid. And every time something got repaired or a lot of additions were added, I literally got to witness, if not help, on most of them.
Mm-hmm.
And not even probably, definitely made me become a contractor, because I just grew up with working dudes around the house all the time. And I'd be like, oh, yeah, here, hold this piece of wood, or grab that hammer all the time. But, never corners cut. I mean, they're architects for a living. They run a design firm. So their level of involvement was definitely too much and over the top for their builders to handle. But that just, always usually led to just an elevated product, and an elevated quality. Is definitely not, have things rotting inside the wall, and that's the guts of the house are really the more important part. Mm-hmm. They're unfortunately not cute and not cosmetic.
There's nothing sexy about it, but it's critical.
It's more vital.
Absolutely.
Yeah. The part of the house that keeps you protected from the elements and cool and dry or hot or warm in the winter, all of those things. You don't see any of that. What you see is beautiful countertops and stunning bathroom tile, and all of that's just as important. But the reality of whether that is protecting you or, serving a higher purpose is not the same.
True.
Yeah.
True. And I think with our own home, that's at the 30-year mark. That's sort of where we are. We've made sure that it got a new roof a few years ago. That's kind of useful. That's kind of important to have. And
shingle or metal?
Shingle.
Shingles.
Shingle. Things like that. That's sort of the first phase, because at 30 years, there are things that need to be replaced. The HVAC.
Why did you do shingles, out of curiosity?
Like the way they look. That's what was on there before.
Okay. Just because metal has a shelf life about twice as long.
Yeah, these were. It was a brand that they were the original shingles. I think they were sold as 25-year shingles. We pretty much got that out of them, and so we trusted the brand. Thought it'd be good for another 25.
Yeah, I mean 25 is usually the warranty for shingles.
Yeah.
So if you got the full 25, then you got. I mean, to be honest, most of them don't even last that long. Yeah.
True.
At the 20-year mark, you should really have to be paying. You should start thinking about it for most shingles. Yeah.
So the house does everything it's supposed to do. When it rains, it doesn't leak. The appliances all work. The plumbing all works. The electricity's good. The HVAC is good. And so now
you're on original 30-year-old HVAC.
No, that's relatively new. That's
okay. I was about to say
8 years old. We got 20 years out of the first.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Wow.
I mean, we pay for maintenance.
You got 20 years out of your unit.
Yeah.
Wow. For those who are wondering why I'm so shocked, if you get 10, that's great. That 10 is the shelf life.
Oh wow. Okay.
10 is the shelf life for air conditioners and hot water heaters.
Okay.
Because nobody takes care of them. You just said you pay for maintenance, though.
Absolutely.
So every year you had them out there? Twice a year. Okay.
Twice a year.
Let's be clear that you are above. Most people do not do that.
I think you can't think about what maintenance cost. You have to think about what it pays. That's the way you have to look at it. And so, maybe some of it's a bit excessive, but it's just nice to know that when you turn a switch on, that whatever is supposed to happen happens. But it does so happen that we do have an original water heater.
Mm.
The beauty of that is when there are power outages, it continues to give you hot water. And we had some extended power outages with Hurricane Fran in 1996.
So you have a gas water heater?
It's gas.
Okay.
And also we had a week-long power outage in 2002. I think there was a nasty ice storm, I think in December of 2002. And we still had hot water. The house was 40 degrees, but you could take a hot shower. It was a bummer when you had to get out.
Okay, so run me down the list just so I'm on the same page. Obviously, you've got electricity. Are you doing electric air conditioner? Is it an all-in-one air handler, or not all-in-one air handler? Is it all-in-one heat pump, or do you have a gas furnace?
Gas furnace and.
Okay, so you have an electric air conditioner,
Yes.
you have a gas furnace, and then you have a gas hot water heater.
Yes.
What about your stove?
Dual. The cooktop is gas. The oven is electric.
Are they separate?
No.
Huh.
So dual energy, one unit.
I didn't even know that was a thing. Interesting.
Yeah. This is more my. I'm kind of the stove top guy. I do things on the top of the stove. My wife is the oven. She's the baker. So we have our own.
It's a good combo.
Oh yeah, it's division of labor there. So I like the variability of a gas top, and she says that she gets, I think, better even baking. Of course, it's a convection oven also. I guess you can have convection and gas, but this is convection electric. And so everybody's happy. I like the way the top works. She likes the way the oven works. And a lot of good things come out of the kitchen.
Yeah. I personally went from electric to gas, just full electric to full gas. I grew up on a gas stove, and I have not noticed the oven differential, but I definitely just prefer having a gas appliance. Yeah. Mm-hmm. But I also went from an electric water heater to a gas water heater, and that's night and day. But
In what way?
So I went from the old school classic big barrel, electric hot water heater that doesn't work ever, whether the power's on or not, to the tankless Rinnai brand hot water heater. The difference between you and I, though, is the modern Rinnais still need a 110 power for the little digital thing and to keep the pilot light on, so I don't have hot water when the power goes out. So I'm just dead. But I can still cook because the stove will light.
Yep.
And I piped in my grill, so I don't have to swap tanks. I just have the grill. It's just piped in permanently. And my gas, the logs, the fireplace, that's piped in as well. So if I lose power in the winter, I at least can cook and have some heat.
And what we've done is we have a natural gas powered generator.
Okay, smart.
And that was important because power goes out from time to time. I think we kind of bit the bullet and just bought the dang thing when after that 2002 ice storm, because my wife and I both work out of the house, and so you can't go to the office to do the work. That is the office,
right? And
people in other parts of the country are not going to be sympathetic to, our power's out for a week and we can't give you this report or do this or that we're supposed to do for you. So we thought we better do this, and that's actually for about the first 15 or 18 years, we didn't use it that much. We kind of joked that it was like if you take an umbrella, it won't rain on you.
My dad takes one to every Yankee game.
You take an umbrella and you won't get caught in the rain. It won't rain. So we kind of joked that because we have the generator, that's why we didn't have a lot of power failures after that. And we thought we should solicit the neighbors and say, give us $50 a piece because we're preventing power failures because of our generator. But I don't think they would be.
I was going to say, I don't think they're going to jump on that.
They're not biting. But lately, in the last couple of years, there've been a lot of outages.
And you're sitting pretty.
And it's like tell people if you need to charge your phone, if you have to grind coffee beans or something, so you don't become homicidal with lack of coffee, come on over. Had neighbors who needed to refrigerate medications. So we have that, and it doesn't run the whole house, but it is hooked up so that we'll run the heat, so we won't freeze in the winter. It's not powerful enough to run the air conditioning.
Okay.
Because that requires a lot of electricity, of course. But the nice thing is all of our office stuff is hooked up to it. We can still cook. We still have hot water. We have some lighting. It generates about, I think, 15 kilowatts. Does that sound right?
Generators are not my forte.
Okay.
And as more and more people are asking me about how to have a backup, I'm pushing them towards solar and batteries now.
Okay.
So I know that AC is the bulk of our power usage. So it makes 100% sense that you would not be able to power it. And
the nice thing though is as soon as it senses that you've lost Duke Power or whoever you're hooked up to, it comes on in about 30 seconds.
No, okay, nice. So you don't have to do anything. You just
Not
wait.
a thing.
That's cool.
If you're watching the Super Bowl and there's an ice storm and the TV goes off, just sit there and wait about 45 seconds and it will fire up, put power back in the house, and you just hit the remote again and you're watching the Super Bowl again.
So power you've got, but I've definitely had lines go down where it's the internet and has nothing to do with your power. So how are you getting this Super Bowl? You have Dish?
No, we don't have cable anymore. This was an example for someone who would
okay, fair enough.
Have their
I was just trying to poke holes in your.
But we haven't had problems with our internet.
Do you have fiber out there?
Yeah, I have Google.
Yeah,
and then Google and Spectrum and I guess Time Warner.
Well, Time Warner is now Spectrum. They're not.
Oh, that's
they don't
right.
Exist anymore.
Right. Who's
AT&T does the other fiber. I think that's who I've got. They did fiber. They beat Google to the punch in terms of this area. And then Google came through and they were like, we can give you the same thing at the same price. And I was like, I just have it already. I'm good. That's not enough of an incentive.
We have an interesting issue. Just about everything's buried in our neighborhood. So you go through my neighborhood and you do not see street lights or sidewalks or any above ground wires.
Oh, well, that's nice.
It is
pretty ugly.
It is until somebody cuts something that you care about.
Oh, right.
The thing is,
call 811.
People are always coming through marking, this color for the gas, this color for the electricity. But what happens during storms is we have an adjacent neighborhood. Our power comes through their neighborhood, and they have just utility poles with power lines.
Oh, okay.
And it's a very nice wooded area full of trees, and they come down a lot and take out these wires. So in the last couple of years, Duke Power has spent a lot of time in not on my street, but in the general area where all the power is coming in. So that's kind of an issue for us. So it's never an issue really locally, as far as power goes. But that's why the generator is kind of key.
To my surprise, because I just had to do it for my property, it's more expensive to get poles and an above ground wire than it is to trench it underground.
Okay.
I had no idea.
I wouldn't either, but that's certainly aesthetically, I think that's a nice thing. And
aesthetically, it's night and day.
But
I always thought that the whole reason we were doing it was because it was cheaper. I was like, well, why are there poles everywhere? Get rid of these things. Don't put new ones up. Bury it. But obviously, that's impractical for existing stuff. This is, I got, for that matter, power from, a transformer in between 4 lots. They had to then trench from there, 400 feet and put a new transformer. And that'll be the transformer that powers my lot, which is just at the moment just raw land. So there is no utility. But I was like, I just want to do this as cheap as possible. And they were like, okay, well, we're going to trench this way. And I was like, trench? Like, why do you guys have to do all that digging? Can't you just bring in 5 poles and bing, bing, bing? And they were like, oh, you want to do poles? I mean, that's 3 times the price. We can do poles. Wow. And I was like, oh, no, I want to do the cheapest, easiest thing. He's like, cheapest, easiest thing is to let us just trench it. It'll take a day. We'll be out here with an excavator. And
sounds like a win-win.
yeah, they were like, either you pay us or you just clear the path. And I was like, I'll clear the path. Yeah, it was very easy, actually, because they don't care about stumps. They just want 12 feet wide of clearance, trees taken down to the stump so that their excavator can drive in and they can just dig a 3-foot deep trench and put this wire the size of our leg in. It's ridiculous. But they knocked it out, that's for sure. Piedmont in this case.
Okay.
Yeah. So with a 30-year house, you have monitored and kept the components. You said you got 20 years on your HVAC, so you have a relatively a new HVAC. You already done a new roof, so you're set there for quite a number of years. Your hot water heater, you said, is original, so you have a 30-year-old hot water heater.
And what we were told was it works. We were told that they don't fail catastrophically. They tend to just start leaking. So just watch it. And
that's pretty true. It's not like they blow up and there's like an explosion.
I think the expression he used was "ride it till it dies."
That's what I was told about my existing HVAC. So it's very true, because there is a point where like the new one will not operate better. It will do the same thing. Unless you go, well, actually, that's not true. The only reason a new one will be better is because you could upgrade to tankless, which you will do, obviously.
That's certainly something we're looking into.
Oh, I could tell you right now, get a Renai. Don't even bother. Just that's the one.
Okay,
that's the brand, and Wilkinson's, Clarkson's, whatever. And if you don't already have somebody, which you probably do, I'll give you Tommy's number. He put in mine. He's my full-time plumber, and he's, that's all he deals with. And he did the gas piping for me, everything, soup to nuts. When I did it, the Renais were running about $1,600. So whatever 20% more of that is, that's what they're running now. So they're not the bottom shelf price, but they are top shelf in terms of quality and that's how they operate.
Maybe we certainly want to think in those terms. We don't want a 5-year solution. We want a solution that pretty much would last until we move.
Yeah, and then also
we're going to move,
like just physically using it. Like they call it on demand for a reason. Your hot water is with the snap of a finger. It's really fast. And
that's nice.
Yeah, it's very convenient.
We've been extremely lucky. One thing about building your own house from the ground up is you can talk about or talk with your builder about what annoyed you with previous experiences. And we rented a house for a year before we built, and there was something funky about the plumbing, such that if one of us was in the shower and the other so much as turned on the tap for a couple seconds just to wet a toothbrush, the person in the shower, the water pressure would drop, they'd get scalded. You could even go to a different bathroom or to the kitchen, to brush your teeth, and still I'd come back, my wife would say, "You turned on the water." So I said, to heck with that. I want plumbing that's going to just not quit. And, now, especially with efficient appliances, I can hop in the shower while the dishwasher is running and clothes are washing. Someone flushes a toilet. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
It's just like having a great shower.
Those differences you really don't think about until you've had to live with them.
Yeah. And so, I couldn't live in a place for 30 years where the water pressure cratered every time somebody wet a toothbrush or just poured a glass of water or something.
Yeah. And the funny thing is like the difference in time and materials from how the house that was annoying was done versus how your house was done is not even a lot. It's just a small attention to detail and, a few $100 of running some extra lines instead of tying everything branched off of one. And I'm oversimplifying it, but that's more or less the difference. And it's just one of those things where it's like, yeah, you could do minimal code. I have an example, the same thing. One of the houses I did, it's like when you plug in something really high RPM, in this case, it was a drill, or no, it was the metal cutter for the gutter person.
Okay.
very high RPM. It would not trip anything, but the lights in the living room would flicker.
Wow.
Right? And everything was done. This is an example of everything was done correctly and to code. But the electrician, who will not be named and I don't use anymore, did it as cheaply as humanly possible. So that outlet and those lights were on the same circuit, daisy chained together. Again, correctly and to code. But for, I don't know, the rock bottom price of $60 worth of some wire and an extra breaker, and the rock bottom of 55 minutes, maybe less, he could have wired them separately. So that outlet was on its own dedicated breaker and those lights were on its own dedicated breaker instead of sharing one. And that outlet could have been used with no problem. And it's just one of those things where it's like, no one did anything incorrectly. Nobody tried to scam anybody, but he was doing it bare minimum code. And the code book, in case you're all wondering, is not the magical way to do stuff. It's the bare minimum so nobody dies and no one gets sued.
Yeah.
It's the bare minimum. So when in doubt, overbuild.
Yeah, I mean, you're saving a few nickels, but I guess the way I look at it at this stage in my life is aggravation costs money.
Oh, yeah. And time.
Yeah.
Time's the big one. Yeah, because time is just like, nobody values their time enough, and it's very important. Like, nobody values their own time enough. The amount of aggravation and time you spend dealing with something that you that just shouldn't have even been in your life at all.
Sure.
That kind of thing. So
like low water pressure.
Like low water pressure. Like, that's aggravation and stress that should have just never have been in your life. Your life, that took a percentage of you as your energy.
The good news is the builder who built for us, took that complaint to heart, and still 30 years later, we don't have any problems.
That's great.
So yeah, so what we're thinking about is all the kind of the guts, as you call it, and the basic systems that are critical. They're all in pretty good shape, and so we're at a point where we're thinking about the sexy stuff, the
cosmetic upgrades.
So it's the house was built in 1993. It's got a 1993 look to it.
So you want to do bathroom upgrades. You want
we're thinking about things like that, and
new tiles and nice glass, modernized.
Just what the houses, what the homes look like in the. I guess we're in the third decade now of the.
And are you
century.
Thinking more along the lines of we love it or resale?
A mix, because we want to stick around a while longer, love our neighborhood, and have great neighbors, and just like the whole vibe of the place. Got a lot of woodlands in the UNC Botanical Garden adjacent to where we live, and that was sort of that was my COVID therapy. During COVID, I could go basically disappear into the woods within about 90 seconds of walking out the front door, and then be in the woods for a couple hours hiking around. So
nice.
We want to stay there. I think at least another 10 years. So the idea is we want improvements that are for us and that we're going to be able to take advantage of. But at the same time, we do want to have an eye to what are people going to be looking for, because there will come a day where we want to sell it, and we'd want to sell it quickly. We want to get as much as possible out of it.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
My understanding is if you're doing these things and because you're planning to leave in 6 months, you probably are not going to get your money back. And you probably might, you might not.
There's a lots of factors in exactly what you want to do, and the 6 month would be more of a flip.
Yeah.
And doing high-end luxury exactly how you would like it, you're probably not going to make all your money back. But at the same time, that, who knows what buyer walks in the door. This is a conversation where you got to talk to a realtor, you got to talk to your designer, either the one you used or a new one. And, you've got to just kind of factor in like, okay, for example, a tile, a backsplash tile in a kitchen, there's definitely directions you could go that are unique, and they're going to hurt you in resale.
Yeah.
If you want to do some mosaic that speaks to you and your wife personally, the likelihood of that hurting you in resale is probably high.
Mm-hmm.
For example, a oversized white subway tile, probably not going to hurt you in resale, because that is enough of a like universal, either liked or not minded, that you're going to be okay, and then same thing with, for example, one thing that's a wash, for example, is like paint, wall paint.
Yeah.
Doesn't hurt or help, like doesn't do anything. Yeah. But one thing that, so for example, one thing that I did that is definitely going to probably hurt me is in my master bedroom, my headboard is a pallet wall. The whole wall is, I ripped apart real pallets, edged them, trimmed them, sanded them, nailed them up with a finish gun, the whole wall, 2 floating pallet shelves. I love it. Okay. Now, when you walk into my house and I show you the kitchen island that I did, I love that equally, but that's going to help resale. The new deck, again, I love it equally, going to help resale. Both bathrooms have redone. Same thing. But that pallet wall, that was for me. That's not helping resale. If anything, that's hurting. Someone's going to walk in and go, oh, why? And then I will politely remind my realtor to mention that it's put up with finish nails and no glue. And you could just pop them all off, do a little putty and paint, and have your wall back if you really hate it. But at the same time, who knows what buyer walks in,
Sure,
sees that pallet wall and loses their mind and goes, oh my God, I've been dying for a pallet wall. This is exactly what I want. This is the house. Like, you can't control it. So, you never know. But I think the mindset, like you said, of 6 months to 10 years, it's got to be different.
sure.
Because you've got to have more percentage of what you want in something you got to live in for 10 years. 6 months, you could really live with something you don't like.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, 6 months. I just have to survive 6 months. It's resale. 10 years, that's hard to do. It's really hard to stare at tile you hate just to be like, well, in 10 years, we're going to make a lot of money. That's tough.
Yeah. And that's kind of where we are. It's we like the area, we like the house, and so it's a balancing act.
10 years, you still think you'll be in this area, or are you contemplating moving to like another part of the country?
No, we're staying in this area.
Yep, it's such a nice area.
Yeah, I like it here. Even a little bit roasty this time of year, but
it's tough. It's been a little sticky the last couple of weeks, but we trade it for almost no winter and stunning Marches.
And I've again the consistent maintenance. The HVAC guy comes in every spring to check out the AC, and every fall to check out the heating. And so
God, your HVAC company must love you. God, twice a year, every year, immaculate unit. They don't have to worry about it.
Well, that's probably why I got the time out of it.
That's 100% why you got the time of it.
I'm not interested in redoing the HVAC system, because I did it once about 10 years ago. But these guys they come in, they look at it, and they just say, "Wow, this is great." And so as long as I can kind of repair and do maintenance, I think long term it saves me money, and it works. And I've got a very, very good AC.
Siding wise, you said wood siding.
It was wood.
So are you just pressure wash and check your paint?
Pressure wash, check the paint. To the extent that boards do go bad or rot out, they've been replaced with the cement product.
Yeah, the Hardy
plank.
Hardy plank. Yeah. It's an incredible product.
It's good product, and those Yeah, there are things that are more, I guess, more old school, more wood. And, yeah, that siding, if you could keep it painted, it could hold up for a while. But once it got any moisture in it, it was gone.
Yeah, I mean,
And the woodpeckers start going after it.
The paint is more of a protective coating than I think people realize.
Oh, it's critical.
Yeah, it's very critical, and a lot of people don't realize it, that your wood product it's not even the water, it's the UV also. The sun, sorry, I say UV like I'm some scientist. The sun beating down, especially in this part of the country.
Yes.
It's aggressive here.
It is.
And that paint, and also between the paint and your wood, your primer, which obviously is in the category of paint and put on by the same person, but there are quality levels to paint. There are quality levels to primer, and they hold up for different amounts of time. And these are factors. If you want to really be on top of it and be like, okay, every 5 years we're just going to paint this thing, that's different. But if you want something that's truly going to hold up for that 20 to 25 year mark before you've got to start thinking about really repainting it.
Yeah. I remember it's been a while since we repainted, but it's held up. I think I about fainted when the painter told me how much per gallon this stuff cost.
It's very expensive.
But then, read the reviews of the paints, and he explained why it cost that. And it had like titanium in it or something. I can't remember, but it's very expensive paint, but it's still there.
It's
holding up nicely.
I just had a coffee meeting with a gentleman I met at a BNI, which is like a business networking group of some kind. And him and his father bought a franchise called Spray Net, and they use a one-of-a-kind formula that the company SprayNet, based in Canada, developed themselves. And so they are full painters, but they only use their paint. And it's like some insane shelf life, and not that Canada is better or worse, but one thing we can say is Canada has harsher winters.
Oh, yeah.
So if this is holding up in Canada winters, that's a good sign for me, at least. And they specialize / only do exteriors of homes and refinishing of kitchen cabinets. Only those two things.
Interesting.
Yeah, because the paint holds up so well to the scratching and grease of cooking that they'll do kitchen cabinets. And I was just blown away at that. I personally do get a lot of calls for people who think it would be easier and cheaper to refinish their cabinets. And I'm like, that's not really accurate, but okay. But having a specialist who does that is very interesting. So I'm excited to see what his product is like.
Yeah, because that's something we're certainly wrestling with now with 30-year-old cabinets. We like them. We want them to kind of be spruced up a bit.
Well, this might be one of those situations
maybe
where
that's the way to go about it.
You take a look at some before and after pictures, the color options they have, and then you also can factor in, they'll take off the old knob, putty that, and then you could put on a new knob. So that's quite a facelift when you're thinking about color and hardware. Obviously, if you want to do like some intricate inlaid door or something recessed, like you're gonna probably be better off getting new cabinets. Yep. But it's one of those things that I could price for you when the time comes.
It will certainly keep you in mind because we're going to be about there soon.
Yeah. So is the factor for you wanting to do this solely just purely like it's been years and it's cosmetically, or is there another factor into why you want to do the renovations now or the facelifts?
30 years, it's just a long time. We've been seeing the same thing. It just looks dated. I guess I wouldn't want to go around in 30-year-old clothing, even if it was in good shape, just because it might look dated.
Yeah.
I'm from the era when, like basketball players or tennis players. The men wore really short
Oh
shorts.
yeah,
And it's of course, assuming I could still fit in them, I probably would take a pass because I've got neighbors who don't need to see that. So it's just something new, revitalize your house a little bit. You just make it a more pleasant place to be, because we not only live there, but we work there. We just spend a lot of time there. We entertain there.
Yeah.
And I think it just influences your mood, your outlook on life, just to be in a pleasant space. And so we want it to be a little bit more pleasant. Not that it's unpleasant, but 30 years is, I think, in the age of a home is, it's kind of getting up there. And a lot of people, I think, rarely will be in a house for that long.
I think that is more unique than not for people, at least nowadays, to be staying in a home that long. Yeah. So it makes sense that, cosmetically it's time to switch it up. Hopefully we can schedule another podcast after you've done some of these projects, so we can dive into them in more detail.
I can tell you how many miles I raked up, spending on the project and what I did with them.
100%. We're going to dive into how the project went, what it cost, how much you were able to put on your credit card, turned into how many miles, and what you ate on that vacation. I want a whole breakdown for our next step.
Or it could be as mundane as they're doing something, they kick me out of the house and I go stay at a Hyatt place, for a few nights or whatever. I mean, it has uses like that too.
Well, I mean, it's possible, though, if you're empty nesters and you have 4 bedrooms and multiple bathrooms, you could probably make it work.
Mm-hmm.
And, as far as a kitchen remodel goes, just don't really start until the kitchens show up. Put the cabinets in the garage and then get that thing demoed and installed in 2 days. And you could at least put the stove in and have a temporary piece of plywood as a countertop for a week till the stone showed up. Just saying.
Yeah, that's, I guess, part of the inertia on our part is just kind of fear of this unknown and remodeling, because we started with a brand new house, and we didn't move into an existing house and do anything to it, and so a little bit of it is like, okay, what is this going to involve, logistically for us? So that's part of it, but I guess
it's definitely a factor. Yeah, but if you are, like I said, the bathrooms part is easy, because if you're empty nesters and you have multiple bathrooms, you just have to live without a bathroom for a couple of weeks, because there's a lot of dry time in between coats of waterproofing with tile, and you want to get that thing right.
Exactly. That's waterproofing is good.
Very much so, and multiple coats. That pink stuff takes a long time to dry, but it works. And the Schluter system is the new kind of modern way to go, and that stuff is really, really nice. But with the kitchen, obviously, no one has a spare kitchen, so there comes a moment when you got to rip out the cabinets and put in the new cabinets. Or if we're refinishing them, there comes a moment when every drawer face and every door face has to come off and be hung up in a spray booth we build in your garage, or sent somewhere and gone for a week. So at somewhere or another, you're going to have to be eating out for a couple of nights in a row. Maybe the microwave we could set up in the spare room.
And eat in the garage.
Eat in the garage, yeah, exactly.
But
But yeah, I would definitely love to talk about the projects after they've been completed. It's very interesting to compare them to how you were building the house 30 years ago, especially.
Sure.
Yeah, and I'm sure, especially with the bathrooms, you're going to rip open walls to 30-year-old plumbing that will need to be upgraded, to modern PEX, or at least moved a little bit for the tub or something along those lines. So it's always interesting to see. Before we wrap up, once again, what's the contact for your travel website?
Okay, again, the website is travelrewardsoptimizer.com.
And rewards is plural.
Rewards is plural, because the goal is to provide people with many rewards over time.
Exactly.
So it's travelrewardsoptimizer.com, and that's where you can go for scintillating blog content, things being added every few days, And certainly if if anyone's interested in the service, that's how you sign up for it. Also, I'm on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter, which is now X, and just interested in dialogue. Like to hear from people, like to hear their questions, their ideas, their experiences, if they've had experiences, good or bad, in their own miles and points activities, because it's, again, something I just love to talk about at length, and like to inform people, and ultimately hear about the great trips they took and how much they didn't pay for them.
Yeah, that's definitely a great end goal. And as always, thanks for listening. The Orange Hammer podcast is as well on, I guess we'll call it X instead of Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. You can email me, corb@wsdg.com. You can ring me on the phone, 845-489-6057. If you want to come on the show, talk about something specific, or need any work in the Triangle area, feel free to reach out. And thanks for listening. Bye, everybody.